Welcome back. I'm Casey. If you were wondering in the last video on the lowrider skateboard as to where the Easter egg was, it wasn't really an object, it was more on how it was videoed. And that leads us today. We're going to build a gimbal. If you don't know what a gimbal is already, well, it's pretty simple. It's a device that allows your camera to slide nice and smoothly and takes away the little imperfections that a person will have with camera shake and instabilities. It also makes it where you can do some really cool time lapses, which at the end of this video, I'll show you some really cool shots I was able to achieve with this. Well, this is to part one. Let's get to it. So to start off this project, I'm using 3/4 inch copper pipe. You could use conduit as well, but I like the look of copper better. And I'm going to cut this down to 6-foot lengths. The reason why they're 6 foot is because that's how long I want my gimbal to be. With this very crude apparatus, I got it chucked up to my drills so that way I could sand it easier. I'm using 1500 wet dry grit sandpaper. Obviously I'm using it dry. As you can see by a little before and after, it really makes it look nice. So the sheets I'm using here are 7 inches by 8 inches and 1/4 inch thick. And I'm just using some things I had around as a template in order to give me a little bit of a profile and just a little bit of a design to it. So at this point, my wife decided that she wanted to take over the project. So I'm just kind of explaining to her where we were at on it and where she needs to go from here. I did give her help throughout this, but most of the rest of it was all her. So with it being March, she started rough cutting it out on the scroll saw. So as you can see, the shape's pretty rough. So she's going to use a rotary tool with a drum wheel and refine that up a little bit. So now we can trace that onto our second piece. So we need one for each end, and she'll rough cut this one out as well. So now using some hot melt glue, the two sides are attached to each other, and we can proceed on fine tuning the edge and making them identical to each other. One thing to note when doing this is you need to go nice and slow, otherwise you start melting the plastic and it's just going to ruin your drum wheel. Them all rounded off, they can now be separated. Now she's marking out the holes for the screws to attach it to the copper pipe. She's using a piece of scrap metal just as a guide to make sure it's parallel. And using a carpenter's square, she can repeat this for the other side. Now she's using a center punch so that way the drill bit doesn't wander. Now she drills them out on one side, and then she glues the two pieces together, drills the other side so that way they're identical. Now to clean up the sides, she's using a torch and just heating up the edge till it just starts to melt. That's going to give it a nice glossy clean look. Now for the screw holes, we need a straight line on a pipe. And the best way I figured out how to do this is to just clamp it to a table and run a marker along the table. We're going to do that on both sides. Now we can drill out the first hole, and using the plexiglass as a template, we can drill out the second one. Now I missed filming taking off the protective plastic and screwing these together. Now for the part that actually slides, we're going to take and drill out one side and using a bolt going through the roller bearing and then a nut as a spacer that can be slid through. And we can take and put a washer on the other side with a nut. Now the reason why we did one side is so that way now we can set a roller bearing on there and have a very perfect mark so it'll line up perfectly. For where the camera attaches to, we took a scrap piece of plastic attached a couple of hinges, and drilled a hole. To hold that in place, we need a bracket. So we took this lock that you commonly find in hotel rooms, and we cut it down to modify it a little bit. So first we're going to cut the shape out, and then she's going to file it down so there's no sharp edges. Here you can see the part that we took out. And now we drill a mounting hole for it. This is going to be a pivot point. In my scrap bin I found this screw that had this wing nut, which is going to work perfect for holding it tight and making it adjustable. Using the rotary tool again, I took and cut off the head of the screw. So now she pre-drilled a hole. She's going to put this 90-degree bracket in. Then after she secures it, we take and cut off the extra of the screw. So this was probably the most stressful part about the whole thing, because you got to drill a pilot hole in the side and it could very easily wander out either way. So with the screw chucked up in the drill, we can run it into the side. We're going to use another nut as a spacer, a couple washers, and the wing nut, and that's going to allow us to pivot this at any angle we want. Last but not least, I 3D printed these plugs for the end of it. You can easily pick some plastic ones up at the hardware store, or you could even use some dowels. And with that, this is virtually done. Now to give it a test. Alright, so now the project is done, but at the beginning of the video I told you that I had some really cool shots to show you. So here we are with those shots. As you can see, it makes it really nice and smooth and fluid. And with this design, you can even mount the camera upside down. This video was a little bit different and a little bit challenging, having another person working on the project too. But working with the wife is always a blessing, and I really appreciated it, and she does a great job as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time.